This is the Missoula Community Forum. We're meeting here in City Council chambers January 25th, 2018, and our meeting starts at 7 o'clock. We are located in the 100 block of East Main Street, right next to the Thomas Marr Bar.
140 West Pine.
140, oh, that's right, West Pine, not East Pine, thank you. And that's Thomas Marr Bar is spelled M-E-A-G-H-E-R. Thomas Marr, in case you ever go to Helena, there's a big equestrian statue of Thomas Marr on the grounds of the courthouse of the state capitol building. And if you're not familiar with Thomas Marr Bar, well, we're halfway between the Oxford and the bus terminal, city bus terminal, the Mountain Line. Okay, when you begin to talk, would you please state your name so that when it's being transcribed, the person who's typing it up knows who is speaking. And if you happen to be watching this on TV, you are invited to attend our meetings, and you are also invited to speak if you come to our meeting. We have a little section in our meeting devoted to people who wish to stand up and talk to us. Okay, we have 18 different neighborhoods in the city. All of us here are volunteers, and so I am Douglas Grimm. I'm the moderator for today's meeting, and we call the meeting to order. Our first order of business is the roll call by neighborhood.
Leanna Waller, Captain John Mullen.
Katie Sullivan, University District.
Janet Van Dyke, Moose Can Gully.
Pauline Leo, Lewis and Clark.
Kathleen Gamar, Rose Park.
Ed Mulder, Riverfront Neighborhood.
Ray Ayton, Far Views, Patty Canyon.
Michelle Cares, City Council Liaison.
Doug Grimm, Upper Rattlesnake Neighborhood.
Jeff Stevens, South 39th Street Neighborhood Council.
Bert Lundner, Grand Creek. Jack Walton, Miller Creek.
Catherine Auger, Lower Rattlesnake.
Mark Foss, Southgate Triangle.
Is there a quorum present?
Yes, there is.
Thank you. We now have the next order of business is to adopt the agenda. I move
that we adopt the agenda.
Is there a second?
Jack Walton, second.
All in favor? Okay, opposed? Next is the approval of the minutes from the last meeting.
Jeff Stevens, I move that we approve the minutes from the last meeting.
Is there a second?
Colleen Beal, Lewis and Clark. I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, our next order of business is public comment on non-agenda items. People who are in the audience are invited to speak. Right up here. Anyone? I see no one. So we'll go to the next order of business, which is presentations. We have Will Seaburn, Department of Housing and Community, City of Missoula Grants Administrator.
Good evening, everyone. Well, thank you very much for the invitation today. Great opportunity to come before and give an update on our office's work. I was here a little over a year ago. I know talking about kind of our community development block grant and home grant programs, and hope to give you an update on those, but also a few of the other initiatives that our office is working on. We've been growing over the past year, both in terms of staff and also just in terms of the types of projects and activities we're working on. So again, my name is Will Seaburn. I'm a grants administrator with the Office of Housing and Community Development. A little bit of background on our office. We were created in the summer of 2016. And kind of overall, what we're trying to do is foster public and private partnerships around three kind of main areas, including increasing housing options that are affordable to all levels of our community, ensuring a strong safety net for those living in poverty through the implementation of Reaching Home, which is our 10-year plan to end homelessness, and supporting economic development opportunities to help our community grow. Specifically for tonight, I'm going to focus on our Community Development Block Grant and Home Investment Partnerships programs, which are federal grants that the city receives annually. Reaching Home, which again is our 10-year plan to end homelessness. A program called the Brownfields Grant Program that we get through the Environmental Protection Agency, and then kind of a brief update on housing policy, which is another area we're working on. So some background on the Community Development Block Grant and Home Investment Partnerships programs. So these are grants that the City of Missoula receives an allocation every year from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. Basically every community that has a population greater than 50,000 can qualify for these grants. Missoula has been participating in these programs in CDBG since about the mid-90s, and Home, I believe it was the late 90s, early 2000s when the Home program came. So basically we get an allocation every year, and then we have a competitive application process where typically nonprofits, but sometimes other city departments apply for funding, and all those applications are competitively reviewed, and the top scoring applications are recommended for funding. They're then reviewed and approved by City Council before we then submit those recommendations to the Department of Housing and Urban Development. A little details on each program. So Community Development Block Grant is often referred to as CDBG. Basically, the primary objective is the development of viable urban communities by providing decent housing, a suitable living environment, and expanding economic opportunities for low and moderate income individuals. And that last part is the key. Any activity that we fund has to show benefit to low and moderate income individuals or areas. So it's either based on someone's income or kind of the income characteristics of a particular census tract, maybe where we're going to try to do some type of activity. Broadly speaking, CDBG can be used for a number of housing activities, though there are some limitations. It can be used for acquiring land for the purpose of affordable housing development, rehabbing existing housing, demolition, cleanup work. The one thing it cannot pay for is costs related to new housing construction. It can be used for economic development activities, like providing microloans to businesses to help them launch, things of that nature. Public services is another area we can fund, though it's capped at 15% of our allocation each year. So in practice, what this means is this is often the most competitive area we have in applications, because I think last year, if I can remember off the top of my head, we received grant requests for public services totaling around $230,000, but because of the cap, we can only award about $80,000. So it's always the area where we see a lot of need, but we're not able, given those limitations, to fund every project. As well as public infrastructure and facilities. Some of you may be familiar with the sidewalk project that's currently being funded in the West Side and Franklin to the Fort neighborhoods. That's one that was approved last year. For the home program, much more focused at the federal level on actual affordable housing development. And so the activities we can do are homeowner rehabilitation. We can do a variety of home buyer activities, including development of homeownership housing, but also providing down payment assistance. With rental housing, again, we can pay for development, but we also have a program called tenant-based rental assistance, which basically serves like a housing voucher that folks can use if they're income qualified. For all of these programs, generally speaking, the income limit is 80% immediate income, which for a single person in Missoula is around $37,000. It increases a little bit based on your household size. And for some of the rental activities, the limit is 60% of the area median income. So we operate on what's called a program year, which is just July 1 to June 30. So we're currently in our application phase for the program year 2018, which will start July 1st. We have applications open right now and will be due February 20th, and then we hope to make recommendations to council in April and May. One thing that we're doing this year, kind of in recognition of a lot of community feedback we've gotten around affordable housing, is we're really focusing our funds this year on projects that will deliver affordable housing outcomes. So, you know, it may be a public infrastructure or a public service activity, but we're looking for it to tie into some form of effort that's going to increase the supply of housing that's affordable for folks here in Missoula. Some examples of some grants that we awarded in the last program year. Some people may have heard of Homeward's Small Homes Development, where they had acquired some former workforce housing from the Bakken oil fields that was no longer being used, and they were able to get it at a discount price. And they're going to be doing a development near the new food bank with 6 of these manufactured housing units, 1 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms. I should have updated that slide. The project has changed. It's 6 total units now, not 10. We also awarded the Human Resource Council with a grant to provide tenant-based rental assistance. And again, that helps folks who are at 60% or below of the area median income pay for security deposits, utility deposits, and a portion of their monthly rent. In terms of the Community Development Block Grant, I already mentioned the sidewalk project that we're funding, hoping that that's going to be getting going here in the spring, and the target is to have those sidewalk segments completed this fall. We also provided a couple grants to housing providers that support folks with disabilities. So one was Opportunity Resources. They wanted to do a rehabilitation project on one of their group homes on Benton Avenue. They're going to be updating the siding, doing new windows, paving the parking lot there. And then Accessible Space is an organization that owns the Eagle Watch Estates, and that's a facility that's pretty much exclusively occupied by folks who have some form of physical disability, and they had an elevator that was failing, which really limited the ability of folks living there to be able to get around, and so we are providing a grant for them to repair their elevator. And then some of the public service grants we awarded, some grants to the Poverello Center to focus on their homeless outreach efforts. I'm going to be talking in a little bit about coordinated entry, which is a new strategy we have in our homelessness efforts, and we're helping to fund a new position there to help spearhead that effort. Homeward has an ongoing program of financial and renter education counseling that really helps people kind of manage their finances and make rent more affordable for them. The YWCA operates an emergency housing program where they provide short-term stays at hotels for homeless families. We don't have a shelter that can take homeless families right now, so this is the resource we have right now for folks who are looking for emergency housing. And then Missoula Aging Services Meals on Wheels program. So just to give you an idea of kind of how the funding works, this is just a chart that shows congressional appropriations for the Community Development Block Grant over the last few years. You can see a downward trend. And what that translates to for us locally is also a downward trend in terms of what we're receiving. Basically, one of the biggest reasons for this, as I mentioned, every time a community reaches 50,000 in population, they can apply to become a CDBG community. At the same time, we're lucky if Congress is appropriating the funding at just the same level, which means our piece of the pie gets shrunk every year as new communities come online. We've averaged about a $5,500 decrease over the past 5 years. So for this year, we don't know what our funding is going to be yet. If you've been paying attention in the news, Congress is still passing stopgap funding measures and has not actually passed appropriations yet for this federal fiscal year. But we're expecting that it could be around $514,000 is what we'll receive this year. On the home program side, similar trend, kind of flat funding in the last couple years. Though last year we did take a pretty significant reduction in our home allocation from $320,000 to $289,000. Based on the trends we've seen right now, we're estimating a grant that we would receive in the area of $283,000. So just to give you an idea of timeline, we conducted a community needs assessment back in December. We had an application workshop in January. Our pre-application deadline is actually tomorrow. Full applications will be due February 20th, and then kind of in April and May is when we will go to council. Also our whole action plan, which is kind of our whole plan for activities that we're going to do, working with the CDBG and home funds, is open for a 30-day public comment period at the same time. Generally speaking, we would submit our action plan to HUD in May, but because of those delays in congressional appropriations, we can't actually submit our action plan until they tell us how much money they're going to give us. So last year, we weren't able to submit our plan until July, and it wasn't approved until October, which can really cause a lot of delays with a lot of the projects we work with. And so it's an unfortunate thing, but the program year still begins July 1, but for all intents and purposes, a lot of projects have to wait to start, because most groups don't want to start working on activity until they have a contract signed that they know they're going to get the funds. Oops. So I mentioned the community needs assessment. We also did an online survey, which I know was distributed through neighborhoods and the neighborhood council, so hopefully you all had a chance to participate. We did receive 545 responses from City of Missoula residents. There's a lot of data on it, so I'm just going to highlight a few. One is we just kind of asked people what neighborhood they were coming from, and far and away, North Side, West Side was one of the biggest respondents, although it's also one of the bigger neighborhood councils, Franklin of the Fort, University District, and Rose Park, and then it's pretty much all in kind of the 20s to 30s from there. We asked people what's the number one issue. We allow them to pick up to 3, but what's clear from all of our both one-on-one conversations and in-person meetings is this need to increase housing that is affordable to all income levels. This is a couple years in a row now where that's coming back as the biggest concern that people are having. I know there's been a lot of articles in the paper this week kind of looking into that and what's behind all that, and something we're very focused on as well. And then we're just looking a little deeper on what people think are the priorities for what we should focus on with housing. The number one thing that came back was down payment assistance for low and moderate income home buyers, which if you look at the data makes a lot of sense. The gap between median incomes and what a median priced home is one of the most significant gaps in the country right now. And so that is a program we have now, but we're going to be looking at ways to try to expand that going forward. So I'll move on to Reaching Home, which is our 10-year plan to end homelessness. I'll start this with the caveat that my colleague Teresa Williams is the Reaching Home coordinator, and I will do my best to be knowledgeable about this topic, but she's certainly the one who knows the most. The plan is broken up into 3 phases that you see up on the board there, and right now we're in phase 2, which is around building a coordinated system to end homelessness. I mentioned my colleague Teresa, who's our Reaching Home coordinator. This gives you a sense of the different things she's working on: our coordinated entry system, crisis intervention team, community outreach, alignment with federal and state plans. This is another area where the Department of Housing and Urban Development has a lot of involvement and offers a lot of requirements about how we're supposed to operate these types of activities. One of the newest things that we launched back in June was a new coordinated entry system, and the basic principle behind this is if you are someone experiencing a housing crisis, you only need to go to one place to get aligned with all the services that are available. We've heard a lot of stories about people that they have to go over to the Salvation Army, and then they'd have to go to the POV, and then they'd have to go to HRC, and what this is setting up is a system that's going to be much more efficient in terms of service delivery. At the same time, what we're doing is we're assessing all folks who are coming through the door for their vulnerability. So what we've seen from other communities who've had success in reducing homelessness is if you target your resources to those who are most vulnerable, that's where you're going to see the most impact. And so it's really been an exciting time as it relates to coordinated entry and getting all the partners involved and working on aligning our resources strategically. I'm just posting a flyer here that's our coordinated entry flyer because I wanted to point out the 4 main front doors, as we call them. These are the places where if you walk in, you can get, whoever you are, you can get linked up with coordinated entry, and that's the Poverello Center, the YWCA. You can call 211 or go to the Salvation Army. Another strategy that we're working on developing with our homelessness efforts is a strategy called diversion, which is basically when someone is housed but is at risk of losing their housing, how can we keep them from entering the emergency crisis system, housing crisis system? And there's a couple of reasons for that. One, it's better for the household if we can keep them housed. And 2, it saves us a lot of money in the long run if we can find a way to work with them to find them an alternative to shelter. You see the cost estimates there that show if you look at how much it costs to divert 50 households on average versus how much it costs to house 50 households for a month in emergency shelter, you see a $70,000 difference there. So this is an effort we're working on growing and figuring out how we can help folks stay housed and avoid falling into the emergency shelter system. It's also important to point out that we know that when we talk about ending homelessness, that doesn't mean that in 5 years from now there's going to be no one who ever experiences a housing crisis. Well, the term we use a lot is called functional zero, which basically means the number of people who are entering your emergency housing system is less than the number of people who are in it and are now getting housed. So if we got 2 people who fall into the emergency housing system, our goal is we want to be putting 2 people who are currently in the system into housing or more, and that's the goal that we're striving for through these efforts. I know I'm going really quick, but I'm just trying to get a lot of content covered. I want to give a brief overview of our brownfields program as well, because it may be one that maybe not everyone is as familiar with. Essentially, brownfield is a program through the Environmental Protection Agency that provides loans and grants to help clean up sites that have environmental contamination. These can be existing buildings. It can be vacant land that maybe had a gas station on it before and someone wants to redevelop it for a positive use for the community. Some examples, we have lands that can be impacted by mining are often brownfield sites, dump sites, scrap yards, and machine shops. I mentioned abandoned gas stations and service stations, and also what's called sick buildings. So even if it's the building itself has asbestos or lead paint hazards, the brownfields funds can be used to abate those. So we provide a variety of loans to organizations looking to do redevelopment work in the city, or grants. Some recent examples tied into our affordable housing efforts. North Missoula Community Development Corporation is doing a townhome development on Front Street that they're using some brownfields money to help clean up the site, and the same Homeward project is on the same site as the Missoula Food Bank, and they had used some brownfields money to clean up that site, and Homeward's going to be using some brownfields money to clean up that site to make sure it's a safe place for people to live.
I was just wondering, those pictures were pretty horrendous. Is that here in
No,
Missoula?
I borrowed this from my coworker, and these come from Kansas State University as a technical service provider for brownfields, and so I think these are pictures that are kind of from all over the country. Anyway, so the city has helped attract more than $5 million in EPA brownfields funding, but more importantly, this has leveraged an additional $26 million in cleanup and redevelopment efforts. In total, it's been about 30 sites that have been assessed. Oftentimes, we just provide the funding so people can determine what are the environmental hazards, if any, and then funding for 10 sites to be cleaned up. And so lastly, I wanted to touch briefly on housing policy and wanted to, more than anything, share this invitation to all of you to attend the Making Missoula Home event next Tuesday. The city was a contributor with a lot of other partners to a housing study that was spearheaded by the Missoula Organization of Realtors, really focused on these gaps between incomes and available housing at all income levels. And they're going to be unveiling the kind of results of that report next Tuesday at the Holiday Inn from 10 to 11:30. It's free and open to the public, no need to register, but I hope you could all attend. And we're going to be looking at a lot of the feedback from this report to help inform other housing policy decisions the city can make. I've spent a lot of time focusing on the grant resources we have, but those are limited, and they're also federal funds, and they are at risk of being cut at any given time. We really want to focus locally on both the non-financial incentives we might be able to provide to incentivize greater housing affordability, and also any options that there might be for developing local funds to do it. And this is going to kind of be a good opportunity to learn about what the study has concluded and what some of the recommendations are. So with that, I'll pause for any questions.
Thank you, Will. Are you ready to take questions?
Yeah.
All right, Michelle?
Did you say that CDBG cannot be used to construct housing?
So it cannot be used to finance the actual new housing construction. What you can use it for is if you want to acquire land to develop housing, you can use it for that. You could use it to clean up the site. You could use it to demolish existing structures on the site, but you wouldn't be able to use any of it to actually pay for the new construction of just housing. You can use it for new construction of other facilities, but not housing.
Huh, thanks.
Jane?
Jane Kelly. In the north side, there is a townhome exemption that's being put in by Edgel Construction, and isn't that on the White Pine Sash, and that was a brownfields also?
That is beyond my knowledge, to be honest. I think you might be right, but I was not working for the city at the time that all that brownfields work went through, but I just don't know. I think you're right, though.
Michelle said I'm right.
There you go.
Anyone else with a question? Anyone in the audience have a question? Well, I guess, Will, thank you.
Can I, Jane Kelly again, can I ask you to talk a little bit more in depth about the sidewalk project and Invest Health and how it helped the west side and Franklin to the Fort neighborhoods?
Yeah, definitely. So the for starters, kind of the sidewalk project did come out of something called the Invest Health initiative, which was a collaboration between the health department, the United Way, the hospital, the city, the county, maybe a few other partners too, where they received basically kind of a planning grant from the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation for over the course of a year to really look at how they look at a lot of things, but kind of how does the built environment impact public health outcomes? And what they found through doing a lot of analysis of health outcomes related to obesity, related to poverty rates, and when you overlay those with the built environment, what you were seeing is alignment between areas that lacked infrastructure, like sidewalks, and areas where you are seeing higher rates of obesity or higher poverty rates. And so one of the ideas with this project was to, because these were low and moderate income areas where you could use community development block grant funds, how could we increase connectivity in these communities to really enhance public health outcomes? And so the Development Services Engineering Division came up with some proposed segments and they applied for it. And what they really focused on is where were the gaps in kind of the existing infrastructure that could yield the greatest results in terms of connectivity to schools. So these sidewalk segments are going to connect to Franklin School and Lowe School, to parks. They're going to connect to West Side Park, and also to bus lines. So how are we kind of creating this environment? And also one of the things they realized from their long-term planning was that in these neighborhoods, sidewalk infrastructure was lacking in around 40% of all streets compared to an average citywide of around 22%. So it was a real clear indication that this was an opportunity to help kind of bring a little bit more parity neighborhood to neighborhood in terms of sidewalk infrastructure.
Thank you. And I'm just going to pass something around. I only have 2 of them, but this is about sidewalks. It shows how many miles of sidewalk in each neighborhood council, the percentage of sidewalk, and the conditions. So as the meeting's going on, I'm going to pass this around. You can take a look. It's just preliminary. There's going to be more coming out from Development Services soon.
All right, Michelle has a question.
No, I just, I lied earlier. I've been wrong many times, including today. Regarding the Edgel site on Scott Street, Chris Behan with Missoula Redevelopment Agency is quoted as saying, although the property is adjacent to the White Pine Superfund site, studies show there are apparently no soil contamination issues from White Pine or from on-site operations, which is exactly what we were hoping for on the edge of the district. So no, not White Pine. But the park over there is on White Pine. That is true. So sorry for my error.
Anyone else? Well, I guess Will. Thank you very much for your time.
All right, thank you for having me.
Okay, Karen.
I would just like to note for the record that Marissa Phillips is here with the Heart of Missoula.
All right, thank you. And next we have University District Neighborhood Character. Well, he's not really a character. We're talking about the character of the neighborhood. Tom Zavitz. City of Missoula.
Doug, Jane Kelly here. Tom Zavitz is not here this evening. I'm not sure why.
So then we won't have that presentation. There's no substitute. Okay. Okay, Michelle.
I wanted to see if the PowerPoint we just viewed would be available online anywhere.
I didn't understand what you said.
The PowerPoint we just viewed, Will's presentation, is that available online anywhere? Is your PowerPoint that you showed us available online anywhere?
It's not currently, but I could email it to Jane. And
Okay.
and you can post it probably.
We can put it in the digest for you.
Oh, that'd be great. Thank you. Okay.
Okay, Michelle cares.
Thanks. I can do a bad job of, I have no idea what Tom Zavitz was going to say, but the University District Neighborhood Character Overlay is a project of Gwen Jones that originated from, Councilmember Gwen Jones from Ward 3, that originated from a massive building that was built adjacent to Bonner Park. And she's been working for almost 2 years now to decide what, if any, zoning changes could be made to the university district to make it so that that type of house couldn't be built. There's been a lot of public process. It's come to council a couple of times, and each time it's gotten the go-ahead, not unanimous, but the go-ahead to continue investigation. Some of the pieces of the project wouldn't allow you to tear down 2 houses to just build one. Some of the things wouldn't allow a roof to be over 35 feet. And some of the other possible rules are around like where on the property a house can be massed. And it changes if it's a corner property or not, to kind of impact the street feel of a house and a community and a neighborhood. So Tom was probably going to give a much better, more specific review of that and talk about the public process that's going to continue, which I'm not really sure what that is. And I think that the idea is that it will continue to come before City Council until it's suggested to have a final public hearing. There are some things that are contentious about it, but I won't go into those because that's just my personal soapbox, and that's not what we're here for. But there's my Tom Zavitz-esque review.
Yep, thank you, Michelle. Well, we'll move on to our 8 o'clock item, relocated fund request for Lewis and Clark Neighborhood Council. Colleen Beal.
Yes, Lewis and Clark is really rolling, and we are finally getting our neighborhood, to choose and see what we have to do for our area of town. We had a meeting in September with our general neighborhood, and we pinpointed some definite areas. So we are needing to have another large meeting where we will do a newsletter and to have our possible calming traffic district developed, and also more on the Bancroft ponds. And so that's what we're asking for more funds. Is there any questions that anybody wants to ask me?
Jane, can you take over for a few minutes? I'm not sure what.
No, you need a motion. Or if anybody has any questions or anything.
Yeah. Could you just spell it out? So it's
Name?
for the Ray Aiden. It's for the mailing, right?
It's primarily for the mailing
Yeah.
because we have a fairly large neighborhood, and
Yep.
we aren't going to send necessarily postcards, but we're doing a newsletter because we will have to have some voting done by the neighborhood and have some counts for the calming district.
Now, do we have this in our?
Yeah, it's in behind the minutes, I think.
It's in your packet. It's about page 2, 4, 5.
Luann?
Well, this might have just answered it, but I was just curious if you had a specific amount you were asking for, and
Yes,
that
it's-
might just be in here.
It
So-
is in there. It's for $350.
Bert Lundner, Grant Creek. I move that we approve this request.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Jack Walton, Miller Creek, second.
Thank you.
Okay. Shall we take a motion for all or none, or by one at a time? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay. And our next point of business is Outstanding Neighborhood Volunteer of the Year Award. Recruit volunteers for Outstanding Neighborhood of the Year Volunteer Committee. Jane Kelly.
Okay, we have on the committee, we have Doug, Jeff Stevens, and Ray Ayton. Bob Martin was on the committee, but he is taken over as chair of his neighborhood council, and Mark has taken his place. So if anybody would like to be on this committee, it only meets one day, and we review all of the applications ahead of time, and then come to the meeting, usually during the day, if it works out for everyone, and pick the Outstanding Volunteer of the Year individual and group award. Is there anybody here who would like to join this committee?
Yes.
Bert. Okay, Bert, you've got it. So I will contact you when we're going to have a meeting, and it'll be after February the 7th, because that's when the applications are due. Thank you, Bert.
Our next point of business here is Community Forum Leadership Team. Recruit for leadership team members.
The leadership team, Jane Kelly, the leadership team can have 3 to 7 members. We presently have 5, and every once in a while I come back to the team to ask if anybody would like to join the Community Forum leadership team. They meet the second Thursday of the month from 6:30 to 8, right over here, and they decide the Community Forum agenda. They work on the agenda. They're also working on strategic planning that's coming up, and so if anybody would like to put their name in nomination, you're nominated one month and elected the following month. And is there anybody who would be interested in that? Yes, Ray, you have a question?
Yeah, who's on the leadership team?
Oh, it's very sorry. Okay, Ray's on. Ray Ayton, Dave Chrisman, Jeff Stevens, Doug Grimm, and Jesse Neidick. You have to either be a Community Forum representative or alternate to be on this committee. Anyone interested in putting their name in nomination?
Someone, please.
Okay, we can try again in a couple of months. We do have 5 people. Oh, Mark Foss said he'd like to
Hey,
do it. Okay.
Thank you, Mark.
Mark Foss.
Okay, Mark, we'll put you down, Mark, and we'll vote on you next month. Thank you very much. Anyone else? Last chance.
I don't think we should close it yet. I haven't heard from any women. I think we really need some women on this committee.
Marisa Phillips, I'll go in.
Marisa, you're
Or am I eligible?
no, because
Okay.
you're not a Community Forum rep or alternate, but maybe we can work on that.
Okay.
Okay, we'll work on that later on.
All right.
Well, come on, any other gals? It's a chance to see what we can talk about. It's a chance to pick out 2 of the things we're going to talk about 2 weeks later at this meeting.
And there's a chance to, like, the strategic planning thing, I think is really interesting and has a lot of potential to think about what does this body do and what does it look like and how can we move forward the Office of Neighborhoods and individual neighborhood councils generally and individually. And I think that there's a lot of potential, unmet potential in neighborhood councils in general, and that this leadership team can work to try and unlock that. Which may or may not happen, but it's a good goal. So I think that the work of the leadership team is more than just picking out the items for the next meeting, and you should think about that when you're considering joining. But, you know, don't join if you don't want to.
I think we'll work on Marissa for next month, okay? Because the community forum rep and alt for the Heart of Missoula has not come to any meetings since they were elected. So, and Marissa came tonight, so thank you, Marissa.
Yes, thank you. Well, I guess we'll move on. We have a request for a budget increase in the neighborhood project funds. Jane, could you talk about this?
Okay, so our funding for neighborhood projects has been the same since 2003. That's a long time ago. In fiscal year 2016, we applied for an increase, and what happens is this is the form that is submitted to the mayor for consideration in his budget. His budget will be ranking it either low, medium, or high priority, and if it's not high priority, it usually doesn't get funded. So anyway, in all these years, the amount, the $20,000 from 2003 has deteriorated 34.1%. So the total funding needs to be $27,000 just to keep up with inflation. So the total increase would be only $7,000. And the approximate increase levels from $3,000 for the large grants of $4,022, and the small grants would go from $500 to $670. We would have to write a resolution for this because it changes everything if we get this approved. So I wrote that, this is a draft, and that's why I wrote that it was unanimous that you voted on it. I just put that in there. I know you haven't voted yet, but we'll get to that. So the grant program is funded by the Office of Neighborhoods, and I'm a member of the grant committee. Ex officio, I don't vote. We have one city council member, Julie Armstrong, on the committee, and 4 community forum people on it, and that is Ray Ayton, Will McLaughlin, Dave Chrisman, Jeff Stevens, and Jesse Nidek is an alternate. So anyway, the service delivery impact, the city charter states that the purpose of the neighborhood councils is to strengthen, encourage, and support neighborhood participation and increase communications. The grant program does this and engages citizens with city council, the mayor, city staff, and fellow citizens. The grants foster initiative and buy-in on city projects. Many more neighborhoods and citizens are active and are participating in neighborhood councils and in the grant program than in previous years. In fiscal year 18, that's this year, we had requests for $34,829 in large grants and only had funding for $18,000. So the underfunding of this program has caused many worthwhile projects not to be funded or to have to be done in phases. They come back every year. We need more money to complete the project. So as far as personnel requirements, I said that this would increase citizen volunteerism. And so this is a draft. If anybody wants to change or add or comment on this, please feel free to, and then maybe Doug will take a vote after a bit.
Jane, I just wonder if some of us who have been around here for a while could talk about some of the things that these grants have paid for in their neighborhood.
Let's start with Marissa.
Maurice Phillips. I am new to the Heart of Missoula, and I applied for a grant for traffic signal boxes in 2 spots
downtown this year and was awarded those.
How much?
3,000. So they're 1,500 per traffic signal box, and got signatures from the community, and am excited about those.
Okay, yes.
So in Grand Creek, we've gotten benches and mutt stations and bear-resistant garbage containers along the Grand Creek Trail, and we've funded traffic signal boxes on Reserve Street.
In the South, Jeff Stevens speaking, the South 39th Street Neighborhood Council, we've funded traffic signal boxes, we've funded improvements in parks, benches, mutt stations, bear-resistant garbage containers, and just a wide variety of items through the years. Signs for the South Hills Trail system. It goes on and on.
Jane, can you, the Upper Rattlesnake, have they gotten anything that you could think of?
Yeah, thank you. Syringa Park, there's a bike skills park going in Syringa Park. That's one. There's another bike skills park going in Southgate Triangle. They just got a grant. They got one 2 years before that for trees and irrigation on Bellevue Park. Who else has gotten a grant? Who else wants to talk about a grant? Ray Aiden.
So mine's a little different. I mean, sort of give you another perspective. In Farviews, we have a whole large collection of pocket parks, and we were trying to figure out, so what do we do with these? And we didn't have a park plan, and so we worked with a landscape architect, used a Neighborhood Project Fund grant to help support that person. We developed a master plan out of that, which was then submitted to Parks Department and is now the master plan for our area, which has made it possible for us to think about 2 of the parks being developed. One is Whitaker, which is was partially developed, but has been recognized and was improved as part of the big project county money, that the bond that went in. We were one of the 10 parks that got support for that. And then we're working on the second park area, which is relatively newly recognized, but was recognized in the master plan to be another developed park. So that's another way that you can use neighborhood project funds to work on planning. Okay.
Anyone else along here? Jane?
Leanna just got a grant too. Tell us about it, Leanna.
Leanna Waller, Captain John Mullen. So we just got approved for our grant request for our project, which is to add a piece to our growing playground in our neighborhood. We got a donation last year, if you remember I talked about it, at one of the community forums in the fall, where Aquatic Spectrums donated a playground piece to our neighborhood playground, and then we requested funds to add an additional playground piece to our playground to better meet the needs of all the ages of the children in our area. So it's really exciting.
Jane?
Jane Kelly, and I can tell you about another grant that's in Riverfront. It's on the Nutritional Labs building, the former Nutritional Labs building on the Bitterroot Trail, and it's a mural. It took 3 grants to do the mural. We did a public art call, and an artist was chosen, and the artist came out at night with a projector and drew the outline of all of the flowers and everything that she designed. It's a flora and fauna type of beautiful mural. And the Willard students came out and painted everything in, so they participated. This was really community engagement at its finest. And so there wasn't enough money to do the whole thing, but they took 3 different years and got a grant 3 different years, and they started in 2014 and finished in 2017. And I hope everybody has seen it because it is stunning. It's absolutely beautiful. It's called Flourishing, and it has all native plants and birds and insects and things like that in it. It's really lovely.
Now, Michelle, do you?
I had two questions. My first question was you mentioned in the request that the last increase was in 2003. Do you know what the increase at that time was? I'm just curious.
I think it went from $15,000 to $20,000.
And do you know when the previous, how long?
It started in 2001, so I think it was a brand-new program that they increased.
Interesting. My other thing was, as I was listening, I was realizing that so many of these really are related to public art, and I think that your proposal would be strengthened by saying that explicitly, because I know that that's a value that we hold and the mayor holds, and one of the only ways that we can fund it through the city is with these funds. And we're thinking about, we've previously funded the Missoula Arts Council with additional staff for the Public Art Committee and things like that, but those funds didn't go directly to public art. So this is one of the few ways that we can fund it as a city, and I think that's a compelling argument.
Jane?
My 2 cents.
And with everybody's permission, I will add that in there. I think that's a great idea. And I kind of left out a little bit of the process. As I said, this goes to the mayor for his budget, and the mayor will rank it as low, medium, or high, and usually only the high gets funded. So if it doesn't come out high and the mayor doesn't elect to put it a high priority, it can be brought forth by a city council person and put on the tickler list for consideration by city council. So if the mayor doesn't accept it, it does have another route that we could go. Maybe there'd be a city council member who would like to take it up and run with it if it doesn't get approved by the mayor.
Are you talking about Michelle? Michelle. Okay. Okay. Well, when I look at this, I see a chance for people who are just plain old citizens or volunteers in Missoula to become part of something that's happening in town, and to say, I helped do that, and I was a volunteer for that. And I've volunteered for a few things, like Jeff and I have volunteered at the carousel. And we've also built a great big playground next to it. I spent 17 days at that, and I go out there in the parking lot, and I see these 2 great big heads sticking up there. They're 3 stories tall. I step back, and I'm sitting in my car, and I look at that, and I said, I did that. I didn't get a dime for it, but God, that makes me feel good. And so I think it's time to take a vote on this. Is there a motion?
I move that we approve, that the community forum approve the request for an increase in funding for neighborhood projects from $20,000 to $27,000 as outlined here.
Is there a second to this motion? Ray?
I will second it, but I want to ask for a friendly amendment. So
Okay.
can we, let's see, if I hold on, let's see, I can't remember the proper order of doing it. I think we have to second and then I can amend. Okay. No, you can do it the other way? Okay. I just want to offer a friendly amendment, which it would be to add a sentence to this application, which is to give a general list of the kinds of projects that have been done, like Michelle's mentioned, public art. I think master planning is another piece. Any other suggestions? I might go in there. Okay, yeah.
Okay, Jane, how do I handle this?
I don't think this is Jane. I don't think this is really a friendly amendment. I was asking everybody to give me comments that I can update this. So, because the motion is to approve the $7,000, but this is just the wording, and that's great. Thank you. I will put that in there. And I can also make another list, and I can make a list of projects that were funded, and it'll be like a link to this page. So that's a great idea. Make sure to have, I'll have planning, I'll have public art, I can have park facilities, and I can make a list of that, of past projects.
I second the motion.
Okay, the motion's been seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, now, next off, we have staff reports. Jane Kelly.
Okay, this, my staff report today, Jane Kelly here, it will be very short. We've, the Outstanding Neighborhood Volunteer of the Year Award is February the 7th, it's due. There's still time to get your application in. It's online. You can get a hard copy from me if you want. We have 2 awards. We have the group award and an individual award. This award will involve having a tree planted in a park, having a day named after you by proclamation with the mayor at City Council. Like last year, it was Karen Sippy Day. So she won it last year. And also, you'll have your name on a plaque outside of my office in City Hall for everybody to see. And I believe this is the 16th year that we're doing it. So please, please nominate some great people in your neighborhood. I know there's fabulous people, and we only have one individual, but you know, it's a hard pick sometimes. And the only other thing is the sidewalk study, which I passed around, is very interesting. That came from Development Services. Take a look at that. There'll be more detailed information coming up. Some citizens went around with an iPad and they took information and put it into a database. I think that most of the neighborhoods were covered, and I know some neighborhood volunteers went out and did this, plus some of Karen Sippy's volunteers also did it. And so it was a big effort, and I think it was ended by the snow. So they went on as long as they could. So there'll be more information coming out later. Thank you.
Yes.
Jane, is that information available on a website right now?
Not yet. I just got an advanced copy to show everyone.
We have any other questions of Jane? Okay, Jane. How about a staff report from Karen Gasvoda?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that the bus tour, we're starting to make plans for the bus tour, which is scheduled to be on April 19th. And I will be sending out some emails coming up, just getting you familiar with what we'll be doing with that. And we'll be talking more with you about that at your next neighborhood council meetings. And one more thing, I wanted to pass around this community forum moderator sign-up sheet. There's a few months in the year that we still need moderators for. Thank you.
Karen. So we've divided the neighborhoods into 3 different tours, right? So this year the neighborhoods will be...
They're on a, I can send that information out. It's Lower and Upper Rattlesnake, Heart of Missoula, University, Rose Park, and Riverfront, for sure.
Jane?
The committee is going to look at the neighborhoods because there was an anomaly last year. So, the committee is going to meet on Thursday? Next week. They're going to meet and discuss things to do with it. So they're going to make some decisions. Everything's not decided yet.
Any other questions of Karen? Comments? Okay, next point of business is the Neighborhood Council report. Tell us what you're finding is happening in your neighborhood, and we'll start over here at this side.
Leanna Waller, Captain John Mullen. Well, I had my update on our grant approval for our playground, so that's kind of exciting and happening in our neighborhood, and we'll be working on growing that playground through this coming year. And that's all I have for our neighborhood.
Katie Sullivan, University District. Unfortunately, I was not the last leadership team meeting, but I have some notes here that the University District leadership team voted to approve support of option 1C of the configuration of South 5th and 6th Streets west between Russell and Higgins. And we drafted a letter of support, and it is now out there. And so if that's interesting to you, I believe that's in our minutes. And that's all I have to report. Thank you.
Janet Van Dyke, Moose Can Gully. We haven't been doing very much. We did have 2 leadership team members participate in the sidewalk survey. And I'm hoping that we can pull together a leadership team meeting in the near future.
Colleen Beal, Lewis and Clark. We've really gotten busy this year. It's been really kind of fun for me because I actually have constituents that I can work with, and we've been working with the city park department on Bancroft Ponds, going over the past different planning stages and seeing where we're going to go from that. Working with the education side of it primarily at the moment. We also are looking at some traffic issues that we seem to have in our neighborhood with the high school and middle school and grade school kind of all in one neck of the woods. So we're looking at some calming things for that. And then we'll have our general meeting in March with our neighborhood.
Kathleen Gamar with Rose Park. We met yesterday, and we had a gentleman by the name of Ben Weiss come and talk about the Missoula Bicycle and Pedestrian Program. He's the manager, and we have a traffic calming issue on Cleveland and Crosby that we're working on. We're going to try to get a turnabout in that area. There was also a suggestion that another area wanted it a couple blocks away, so we're dealing with some of those things. We had a couple of ladies come to talk to us from the National Wildlife Federation, Northern Rockies, Prairies, and Pacific region, and they're going to be helping out with a little triangle park project that we have. They're going to be helping us with some of the decorating of that area, and it's located near Mount, across from the fire station, number 2. So that was a pretty neat little meeting that we had with those ladies. And let's see, we talked about the bus tour. Anything else, Jane, you can think of? I think that was probably it.
Oh, wait, there was one other thing. You also did approve the 5th and 6th Street traffic study. Yes. To write a letter in support of that.
Yes, thank you.
Ed Nolder, Riverfront neighborhood. The old Sawmill District is in the Riverfront neighborhood, and it is, as you've probably driven by, it's building up pretty fast. There's 2 new buildings that are in project right now, and there's plans for a restaurant and bar to be hopefully built this spring or early summer. There. Free Cycles on First and Walnut is in development of more services and development for more public use with the accusation of the ownership of the property last summer. They're going to be doing more of what they do right now, and also offering more outreach to the community. And the California Street revitalization is on hold for right now through the winter. Although I've noticed there's a lot of potholes popping up already on there, and so I'm going to be doing a report on that at our next meeting, our next leadership meeting on February 12th at Bernice's Bakery. Thank you.
Ray, and so I alluded to earlier, I think the big things that are up, that we're interested in up in Farviews right now is about this development of the parks and our concern with a very historic building that's located in Whitaker Park, that's actually the Forest Service radio transmitter building, an amazing amount of history. It's falling apart. It's full of asbestos. There's no money to do anything to move it or to renovate it. And we think it's going to come down because there's just nobody who can do anything about it. So I think that's it's going to be a loss, but that's my personal opinion. I don't know how my neighbors feel. We're planning on finding out at the neighborhood council meeting that we will be having in April. The other thing is a big area that has 3 water company tanks on it that are going to be dismantled over time. Is this other park that we've been hoping could be developed, and there's some energy out there, so I think that may happen. That's it at the moment.
This is Doug Grimm, the Upper Rattlesnake neighborhood. Well, Missoula's best neighborhood. We had a meeting on January 2nd, and we decided that we would have a big neighborhood meeting on let's see, February 9th, I think, at Messiah Lutheran Church. No, February 11th. It's a Sunday at Messiah Lutheran Church on Rattlesnake Drive. We're going to have Shane Stack talk about some changes maybe to the 2 roundabouts on Van Buren at the interstate. And we'll also have a talk about our smart911.com, getting signed up for that. And Trout Unlimited is going to talk about removing the old Montana Power Dam on Rattlesnake Creek. And the Sharinga Bike Park. And I guess that's about it. Thank you.
Jeff Stevens, South 39th Street Neighborhood Council. If you took a look at that sidewalk survey that got passed around, you might note that our neighborhood council ranks number 2 in the city in terms of sidewalk deficiency. We were beaten out for the dubious position in number 1 by Missoula's best neighborhood, the Upper Rattlesnake Neighborhood Council. In our defense, I'll have to say that we do have one of the best neighborhood trail systems in Missoula, which partially compensates for our lack of sidewalks. But it's something that's been a long-term problem in our area, and I don't know when it's going to be addressed, but certainly some of the major arterials in our neighborhood council do need to have sidewalks at the very least.
Bert Lundler, Grand Creek. We've had several things happening. This winter, the city was unwilling to plow the Grant Creek Trail, as they have been unwilling to plow it since it was constructed. And a couple of homeowner associations and the Grant Creek Trails Association contracted with a service to plow the trail. We're preparing an agreement with the city that would establish the rules under which that was done. Primarily, we had to have a contractor who was authorized to work with the city, even though wasn't working with the city, but nonetheless, he is authorized to work with the city, and he has a lot of liability insurance. So that's keeping the trail far more useful than it would be for 4 months of the year. It would be buried under snow, ice, and rock, because some of it's right by the road, so the plows our trail in when it goes past. So anyway, we're thankful that we've been able to get that done. Long term, we'd sure like to see the city plow our trail like they plow a lot of the other paved trails in town. We did go and visit with the Rattlesnake Transportation Committee, which is both the upper and lower Rattlesnake neighborhood councils, and we discussed their interest in building a trail that would serve as a commuter trail in the Rattlesnake. And we told them that if they're not willing to spend 10 years, they probably ought not to spend 1 minute. So as long as they realize that these projects are huge, long-term endeavors, then I'm sure they'll succeed and they'll have a trail. It just won't happen when they want it to. It'll happen some years afterward. We're also been meeting with some other citizens and folks from the Rattlesnake, discussing the continual challenge of keeping the trash cans inside at night so that the bears don't have parties in our streets each night before pickup. So, thank you.
Jack Walton, Miller Creek. We have working on planning a meeting, leadership meeting in the near future. I was hoping we could hold one in February, but it looks like it might have to go to March. And then a couple of things came up. I attend the Board of Directors Homeowners Association meetings, and a couple of the issues we're dealing with is in Upper Linda Vista, as part of the agreement with the city, there's boulevard trees, and not all the owners have put in their boulevard trees. And so we're getting a few complaints, and they're trying to handle that, and we're working with the city forester on boulevard trees. And then we had another individual that kind of resourced to the Homeowners Association Board of Directors. And he mentioned that the snow plowing on Miller Creek and Linda Vista and some of those streets up there, they snow plow, but they also put down a lot of sand. And where does the sand end up? It ends up on the sidewalks. And you know, the street sweeper comes and cleans the street, but there's all the sand on the sidewalks. And how do we get rid of the sand on the sidewalks, and who does Miller Creek? And found out that the city has agreement with the county to plow Miller Creek, but I noticed this morning that there was a county plow and a city plow that were plowing Miller Creek. So it's getting double duty from snow plowing. But they put a lot of sand down too. So, but anyway, this individual's going to be working with neighborhood council and see if we can't get a volunteer to spearhead a cleanup day, that type of thing, clean up some of the sidewalks, but also some of the trash in the area. At the homeowners meeting, we found out that right now, Jeffrey Park is a new city park, and it has been, the sprinklers are in, the grass is in, trees have been planted, but they ran out of money. So for playground equipment or a pavilion, that's not in the works right now. There's only, I think, $10,000 left in the budget. But anyway, I know the Homeowners Association, we're trying to get a volunteer to take on spearheading, maybe coming up with a grant proposal with Jeffrey Park. I don't know. We'll have the Homeowners Association will have a public meeting in March, and so that's one item that can be brought up to the homeowners. See if there's anyone interested in following up on that. Found out that at the Homeowners Association meeting that right next to the power substation on Miller Creek, Upper Miller Creek, there's going to be a kind of like a community gathering spot. Whatever that means, it's something similar to the one, I guess, what they call Rattlesnake Gardens. I don't know that much about it, but anyway, it's going to be kind of a coffee shop, maybe mini mart, and just where people in that area can kind of gather. So I'm waiting to see what happens with that. but it's been approved by the county, and I think the city is looking at approving it and annexing that portion of land. And then we have a couple of additions to Upper Linda Vista, supplement 15 that goes down Shaver Drive. They're working on that, but they've also started the supplement to the Teton addition off of Christian Drive. There's new homes going in there. And I don't know how many people know, but there's a trail that goes from Lower Miller Creek, goes up through some of the houses, and goes up underneath the power line. And that comes up and ties into Christian Drive now. They've extended that, and that's being extended on through that Teton addition. So we'll have a trail that extends from Upper Linda Vista down all the way to Lower Miller Creek. That's my report. Thank you. I don't know the name of the trail. I'd have to go to a map, but I haven't done that. But anyway, I know it's paved on the lower portion. Comes up from Lower Miller Creek. Comes up, I think there's a street in there, and then it goes behind some houses and comes up and ties into Jaden. It's paved up to Jaden, and from there on, I think it's just dirt. But I know the developer is extending that trail on out through that Teton. The Ranch Teton addition. Extending it. And they'll probably, I think his proposal is for that to tie into Lower Miller Creek down by the other electrical substation. Thank you.
All right, Catherine Auger, Lower Rattlesnake. We had a meeting on the 17th of January, a leadership team meeting. We had our council representative, Brian Van Lossberg, there, and we discussed what Bert was talking about as well, the garbage trash pickup being an issue with us being in a bear buffer zone. So I believe they've formed a task force in partnership with the Grand Creek neighborhood to work with Republic Services to strategize if we can come up with a solution for that. And we also talked about the issue of deer in the Rattlesnake, which is, of course, been an ongoing issue. And again, they're maybe going to start kind of a subgroup to look at that. And the main thing they need to first decide on is what defining the problem and what would be a solution. You're never gonna remove all of the deer from the area. So, and I believe the university district, they're gonna reach out to them as well. And then we also voted on leadership team positions. We haven't had formal positions before, so we all were nominated ourselves for positions. And we talked about having a leadership team meeting next month, I believe, and then we are going to have a general meeting in April. So we have not yet picked the topics for that. And we also had an update on the transportation committee from Bob Giordano. One thing we approved was a letter regarding the intersection of Front and Van Buren, which is just past the Eastgate shopping center by the footbridge on Van Buren, and how that's an unsafe intersection. So we will be submitting a letter just voicing our concerns as a neighborhood council. And that is all. Thanks.
Marisa Phillips, Heart of Missoula. We're a new neighborhood council, I guess. We haven't been happening for very long. We just had our second meeting, and we discussed parking in the downtown area, which is a problem for most people. And there are solutions, but it seems as if parking's always going to be an issue. Another thing that we have addressed is our homelessness transient issue in our neighborhood. I know it affects a lot of the neighborhood, and we are reaching out to a couple of people like the 316 to try and get them involved in our neighborhood council, to try and maybe make some solutions to the crime and issues that we're having in our community, especially heart of Missoula. I'm trying to think. I think that's all, mostly what we discussed. Thank you.
Rod Austin from the Parking Commission came and talked a little bit about how that they are probably going to expand the Parking Commission maybe out towards Heart of Missoula, out towards the west.
They're thinking within, I believe, 5 to 10 years, he said, or less than 10 years, that parking will probably go from downtown to the railroad tracks near Draftworks, and possibly go the other direction as well to the fire department on Van Buren.
Mark Foss, Southgate Triangle. We've got quite a bit going on along Brook Street. We have, of course, building at the Southgate Mall, the 12-plex theaters getting ready to open, along with the Lucky Market. Mary goes through about 4 roundabouts from Reserve to Brook Street and past through the mall now. MLL Park, the Bitterroot Trail final plan will be funded with the URD3 funds and will be ready for use by next fall. That's that little lot there on South Avenue and Johnson Street. It used to be the old Roscoe Steel plant. Anybody was here for a while would know that, where that was. The Bellevue Park training course plan is finalized and also will be completed by next September. Les Schwab Tire across from the Russell Fairgrounds there is about done and should be open. I think they might even be opening this week. A new dental office building is also under construction on that same block. The old Tower Pizza building is being remodeled and is a new bridge pizza location. New car wash is under construction at the old Howard Johnson Mall or motel location. The Cowboy Flats subdivision across from Dory Lane, right across from Coles there, has been approved, and that'll add 32 homes to our neighborhood and make 38th Street a through street from Paxton to Dory Lane. As neighborhood council, we are planning for future steps to be taken to develop Bellevue Park for more improvements to Boyd Park and Cloud Park. Looking at sidewalk improvements to be made, but we're down low on the list. We've also had Orange Therapy Fitness open up. Yeah. And they're also building now behind the Blackjack Pizza, some office buildings there. Used to be just an empty lot. Does everybody know what I'm talking about? But they're starting to develop that now too. And we also have Flying Squirrel open and Cash and Carry too. So we have a lot going on with the Brook Street there, but a lot of buildings. So that's it. Thank you very much for your time.
Jeff Stevens.
Yeah, I have one more thing to add in that neighborhood. I noticed that the remaining building on the new Stockman's Bank lot is being torn down now, so I suspect that they're going to be starting construction on that new bank pretty quick.
Are there any comments from the audience? Well, we will proceed on to our neighborhood council liaison, Michelle Kersh.
Hi. As of January, there were 4 new council members elected to city council, and as part of the change in guard, there's new appointments to the boards and commissions that various council members sit on. So I was the alternate for the community forum liaison at my first 2 years on council, and now I'm the primary liaison, and Heidi West, council member from Ward 1, is now the alternate. So you'll be seeing her sometimes too. The council elected a new president and a new vice president. Brian Van Lossberg from Ward 1 is the council president, and Gwen Jones from Ward 3 is the vice president. As a reminder, you can always email all of council at any time with your thoughts on an individual or neighborhood council level at council@ci.missoula.mt.us, and that goes to all 12 of us and on the public record. We are happy to hear from people, so don't hesitate to send us your thoughts on any given thing. I wrote down some of the main things that we've seen before City Council so far in 2018. That's what I've tried to do in my community forum liaison reports in the past. If you would prefer I did something else, just feel free to give me some feedback. We've only had 2 meetings so far, and we've talked primarily about 5 or 6 things. Something that the city staff do every year is Title 20 maintenance, and Title 20 is our zoning part of municipal code, and so it really ranges all sorts of different things from like parking, how many parking spots per unit, to tons of stuff. 2 of the main things that the city staff has recommended for update and maintenance in this Title 20 update that I think are sort of controversial and may change by the time that we get to the final public hearing are changes to the additional dwelling unit, ADU regulations, that would, instead of requiring ADU proposals come through conditional use permit, which requires a full public hearing before council and a lot of opportunity to comment and participate from citizens, it would be something that could be approved administratively, and so would conceivably lose some of the public process that it has right now, although there would still be public notice about the projects and the immediate neighbors would still be notified. It would just, the final approval would be different. It's interesting, since the ADU process has been approved, which was 5 years ago, 17 ADUs have come in and all of them have been approved through city council, and so I think that's where city staff is coming from, but some people on council feel strongly that it was a really contentious issue when it came to pass 5 years ago, and people still aren't down with it, and so the public process and full conditional use permit process should continue. So I don't know how that'll work out, but especially the University District, where I think the most ADUs have come through, we'll probably be interested to hear from people about what they think about this maintenance recommendation update. The other change that I think is interesting is around tourist homes. They are suggesting just a change in the way that we notify people right now. If you wanted to make a place that you owned into a tourist home, i.e. list it with Airbnb, you are supposed to notify everyone within 120 feet. And that's really hard to figure out. And city staff can't give you a list of addresses within 120 feet because it's illegal. So they have to teach you how to measure. And it takes a bunch of time. And the new recommendation is just to notify one property away from the property in question on every side. And then there's a recommendation, a different recommendation that the city should be the one notifying the neighbors rather than the homeowner. There's varying opinions about that. Like, the homeowner should do it because then they're actually hearing what their neighbors think and actually, investing themselves in their neighborhood. Or the alternative argument is the city should do it because then we know for sure that it gets done. Because right now the homeowner can just say that they've done it. And so that's the other one that I remembered in the Title 20 maintenance updates. The process is ongoing and the public hearing doesn't have a date yet. So if you care about those things, watch the public hearing calendar, which you can find by Googling it on the city, on Google. It's on the city website. The next thing I wanted to tell you about is the city council is seeing revisions to the demolition permit, which is an ordinance that impacts the 62 buildings noted as historic buildings. As you will remember, the Merc, which was once our 63rd historic building, was torn down, and part of that was that the demolition permit ordinance was really, really cruddy and super vague in all sorts of ways. And so Gwen Jones has taken the lead on updating the ordinance. And, there's only 62 buildings, so it's not like it's something that's going to happen a lot, but it was such a huge community issue last time that I think there are people who will find that interesting, and encourage you to get involved if you are. We, the city, annexed 3rd Street from Hyberta, which is where Hawthorne School is, past Karis Nursery, past Reserve Street. We annexed 3rd Street from Hyberta to Reserve Street, roughly 2,100 feet, and we annexed the school. And the reason that we did that was to make it clear, emergency services clear. There was an incident a while ago where the sheriff didn't want to come, and neither did the police, and they were like, this is not ideal. So they annexed, but it brings up an interesting question about sidewalks when we look at those sidewalk maps. Between Reserve and Hyberta, there are only 4 parcels that have sidewalks, and Hawthorne School is currently the only school in the entire city that doesn't have a single sidewalk attached to it. And so I think that will be an interesting project that will come up in the next 5 years, hopefully getting better pedestrian access to Hawthorne School. Because the kids who live in River Road neighborhood go there, and it's really a bear to get there on foot or on bicycle. We approved an annexation for the former Johnny Carino's to become an old Chicago. Not that big of a deal, but it's something that we did. And the last thing that we've done is restarted the process for the Colon Ditch annexation and zoning project, which you may or may not be familiar with, but it's been super contentious zoning project on Grove Street. Again, that's in the River Road neighborhood on the other side of Reserve Street. The neighbors there are not psyched about the project, and there was some problems with development services outreach, and so we had to start all over, and we'll have the public hearing, I think, on February 5th. That's what the City Council has been up to so far in 2018. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Our next item is discussion items to report to City Council. Now, this is something about 6 months ago Ray decided he'd like to see put in. Ray, would you explain what you want?
Don't shoot the messenger. Please.
I'm just giving you an opportunity to say
Right?
it correctly instead of having me translate
I
it.
believe that there are 2 people sitting here right next to one another who collaborated on this. And in fact, I was goaded on by Michelle. Take it away. And that was to encourage people, as I heard tonight here, to talk about issues going on in their neighborhoods so that our liaison can be aware of that and pass it back to council too, so that there's more interaction. Does that answer your question? Does that help?
Well,
Michelle's going to dig in too.
May I?
Yes.
This
Michelle.
item has always been here. The moderator always comes to City Council. So what Ray did 6 months ago was to simply try and ask for a slight refinement on what had happened before. So do you feel comfortable with your report that you have to give on the 5th?
I will do my best.
I have faith in you. I look forward to whatever off-topic subject you choose to bring up.
I have about a week and a half to get it together of what has happened here in the last hour and a half. Boy, we're getting done here about 25 minutes early.
Doug, I would encourage you to go back and watch this and write down some of the things. I think I wrote down quite a few that might be worth letting council know about.
Okay.
Okay.
Just pass it over here.
No way, dude.
Is there anyone who has any further comments to make? Well, meeting adjourned. 25 minutes early.
Turn on your phone, Doug.